We should have a segment where they send in videos and we just watch them and judge them.
That's just going to be people sending in like their buddies' videos or my videos.
Yes. It should just be us tearing Josh's tick list.
We'll start with our own. And it'll start with, God. I mean, Josh has most of them. So when I say our own, it'll be.
Meaning Josh, yeah.
Welcome to the Testpiece podcast. This podcast is about all things high-level climbing. How to go from good to great. I'm your host, Joshua Horsley. I've been climbing for over 30 years. We recently updated our Patreon, and now you get exclusive content from the guests that you love. You get your episodes before everyone else, and they're ad-free. Try it out now at patreon.com/testpiece with a free 7-day trial. Okay, let's start the show. Good Temps is back. Good Temps are back. Literally, it's cold right now. I'm wearing fuzzy slippers. I'm psyched. I'm climbing outside and it's not sweaty. And that just makes me happy. Like I love talking about climbing this summer, but I'm almost a little angry. Like I want to go out and climb. I don't want to just talk about climbing. And now I'm doing it. Now I'm cold, but sweaty in all the right places. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know what that means. Carlo, you were out last week. You were climbing with a whole big crew of some of the best, and it wasn't good temps. It rained a bunch, but tell me about your Black Diamond trip that you were just on.
Yeah, I mean, I got to preface this by saying that, 23, 24 years of this, there really, in my opinion, is just no better feeling of cold, sticky granite after a long summer heat. When that first kind of week rolls around where I get up into the mountains and the granite is just sticky and it's, I got to be wearing like at least a fleece or a second layer. Honestly, man, I every year it happens and I just don't remember what that feeling was like. And I'm just like, nothing gets me more excited and stoked than that feeling. And every time I experience that, I'm just like, yeah, I still love climbing as much as I always have. And this is the best experience ever. And honestly, it's like, I could even just be climbing warm-ups, but like that feeling of like cold, sticky granite on the skin where everything just feels kind of like Velcro. I'm just like, this is incredible. But yeah, so this last week I had a bit of that. I mean, fortunately the temps dropped and brought some storms in with it. We did a Black Diamond Athlete Summit in South Lake Tahoe, which we had Ethan Salvo come down from Squamish, Sean Rabitu, Tim Kang, who I know you're familiar with, Josh. And,
my dude.
And then, Babsy, Jacopo, Seb Bowen was there, Hazel, and her husband and her daughter. The list is so long and I'm sure I'm forgetting other people, but like I said, I can't name everybody that was there, but honestly, I had like a great time hanging out with everybody. I forgot how cool it is to hang out with so many people that are kind of pushing themselves at that upper echelon of the sport. And, whether they're skiers or runners or which there was a lot of those as well. It's just pretty cool to be surrounded by all those people. And I was kind of put into like a bit of a guiding situation where like, since I know all the areas that we were at and knew we were going, I ended up just kind of guiding everybody around to different zones. And obviously I want to show people the best of what's out there. And so we ended up going to Kirkwood quite a bit. There were some other zones that we wanted to go to that were more wet than usual because the further north areas were getting more moisture. So, but yeah, we did a day up at Lost World out in Kirkwood for bouldering, and then a day at the Empath Cliff, essentially where Empath was. I got to see a bunch of people try that, which was rad. And then we went up to the Phantom Spires on the last day and got kind of hailed on. We were going to try Crown Jewel because I've never tried it, but they were all stoked about that. And I still haven't tried it because we got hailed on and then full rainstorm and then bailed. So I still haven't tried to even pulled on the wall on that thing. We got like a good warm up in and then bounced. But yeah, overall it was a good week. It was fun.
Oh man, what a crew. Yeah, that would be incredible to just be out there in like Lost World or in Kirkwood and just have like those like guys roll up. Yeah. Austin, could you imagine just grabbing some cold, sticky granite? It's not hot anymore. And then just having that crew roll up to your proj and just join you.
Just watching everyone send it. Yeah.
They were raging for sure.
Did you guys get on anything like equanimity?
Yeah. Sean, and Ethan and Tim tried equanimity. I know Sean was doing pretty good on it. I don't know if he ended up finishing it. I didn't ask him. But he's coming back, I think, next month and is psyched to try it. But yeah, those guys, got after it on that thing.
What do you guys think about just rolling up as a massive crew out to boulders? I was out for a birthday party this weekend in Tahoe. Steve DeLuca, happy birthday, dude. And we had like 10 of us. We hike out 45 minutes to the Platinum Boulders, and we show up, and this one guy, Kevin Kukovic, who you guys probably know, he's there by himself just on the boulder, and we're like, hey, there's like 12 of us, and we're just going to hop on. What do you think about that? Of course, Kevin's cool. He had no qualms about us joining him. He was like, oh, it's Saturday. Of course it's going to be crowded. It's a cold, sticky granite day. But yeah, Will, what do you think about just rolling deep into a spot? And I mean, of course you want to check with them and say, hey, what do you think about that? But what do you think the ethics there or the style points are for rolling deep?
I don't know. I don't want to make an ethical judgment. I'll say for me, it just gives me a shit ton of anxiety and I like cannot handle it. Any more than like 6 people. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. That's too many. That's too many people. And so like generally if I'm going around and have a group, I try to keep it as small as possible. Or if like somehow it gets crazy, it's like, hey guys, we got to split up. I wouldn't be mad and I wouldn't like be like, nah, you guys got to get out of here. I'm trying to climb on this boulder alone or something, but I would be bummed and I also might leave. It's just too much.
We got lucky up in Tahoe actually, and maybe it was because of the weather forecast, but surprisingly, like every area that we went to, there was not a single other person out. And so it was actually made it pretty easy on that end of the scale. But
if you guys all showed up, I think you guys would actually get more people to join you. People would start coming from all over to watch that crew of amazing people. Did everyone from all over the world agree with you that the feeling of cold, sticky granite is the best? Because I say that half jokingly, but we talk a lot about limestone sport climbing, or there's sandstone. And when you said cold, sticky granite, like I had a hard time not busting up because just the way you said it was, there was almost too much love there. But I'm curious, did the rest of the Black Diamond crew also feel the same about, the thing you covet?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of like everyone that came had kind of come from places that were slightly warmer, and it was like, it really did feel like for everybody, that was like the first week of like temps dropping, and like feeling sticky. And even with wetter weather, it was still cold, like even too cold at sometimes, and I think everyone overall was just stoked about that fact. They're just like, oh man, this feels like kind of the start of it,
Austin, I know that you've been climbing throughout the summer. It may not be cold and sticky, but you still get after it. And so maybe this isn't the best question for you, but I'll start with you where it's the season. It's, it's Centober. And although I feel like now with like global warming, that like doesn't make sense anymore.
It doesn't
like
October
anymore, sometimes. Okay, let's not go down that. Like, how do you transition from kind of like summer training, maybe a lot more indoors to outdoors? Because it's different. It's a big change to go from indoor sweaty plastic to hopefully outdoor crisp granite or wherever your rock is.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think for me in the Northeast, even throughout the summer, since I'm still climbing outside, I kind of view like the outdoor climbing as the gym climbing. And I say that with quotations, but I kind of just understand that I'm probably not going to send my projects in the summer, and I treat it like I'm training on them, and I'll pick a few that I want to be prepped for. And then when the good temps finally come around, I can like be like, oh, I've done these moves in the heat. I've linked a few of these. Now imagine it's 20 degrees cooler. I probably can just lock in and send it, or at least feel a lot better on it. And maybe I'll do a gym day here and a gym day there. But I do feel like most of the time during the summer season, I'm spending it finding new projects, finding new areas, cleaning things for the winter season, at least around here.
Always getting after it. Yeah. Maybe, Will, you have, I guess in Colorado, it's kind of always climbable somewhere. I don't know. The summer is good. The winter's, I don't know.
That's why it's kind of cool here. The quality of everything is maybe not what you would wish it would be, but yeah, it is. It is nice. I mean, it looks good out today. Actually, it has just started like cooling down, and the kind of intermediate areas like Wild Basin and whatnot. So not like the highest stuff, but not roadside season yet. All that is getting really good. Yeah, I went out with Michael and Quinn a couple of days ago to just hang out, and I was touching the stone, and it was feeling like really good. I was like, I'm dying out here. I gotta climb. It was cool.
Dude, shout out to Quinn, who's been on one, it seems like. Okay, well, damn it, you guys, it sounds like you guys are just always climbing outside. Carlo, do you got anything to help people out who are making that transition from summertime training or indoor focus to cool sticky granite?
I don't think you need any help with that, man. It's like it just kind of ushers you in, you know?
Yeah, nature takes over.
The door's open, just walk through it, right? Yeah, nature takes over. I mean, it should feel pretty natural to be like, oh my God, I can finally stick to something now. And like, I don't have to hold on with everything I got and worry about sweat, you know? I mean, that's one of the benefits that I found from like living in Sacramento is that it's pretty warm in the gym in the summer. And like, if you do get outside, it's like hot, like proper hot. And like the difference between the two once fall comes in is like pretty amazing. And I actually do feel like I make this massive performance jump just because of the conditions, you know, where I'm used to having to hold on really hard. And then all of a sudden I can kind of just relax. And it's a pretty cool feeling to have where you're just like, oh, I just don't even have to try that hard now. So this is awesome.
I feel like too, if you do have a hard time with the transition, is like just to know that it's probably going to feel weird right away, and just to like give it time too. Like indoor skin and outdoor skin are just so different. You'll probably take a little moment to actually adjust.
And don't get injured. Like don't just go too quick into it. Sorry, Will, but I've been injured for a little while. But I mean, like, you know, like in the transition from, you know, training and gym to like getting psyched on your outdoor projects. Like, I think people can be like, oh my God, I got to take advantage now. I just got to go for it now. And it's like, nah, it's going to be anywhere in the country. You've got at least, you know, 3-4 weeks of hopefully decent fall temps, you know, like, and sometimes like what I like about California is like it starts in the beginning of October and, you know, and then usually we'll get through the end of the year, like all the way through December where it's pretty good without too much precipitation and whatnot or snow. And so it's like, you know, this is gonna be a long season, like settle in, get going, get psyched, you know, find the stuff you're ready to work on. And, yeah, don't go too crazy right off the bat. Although I have a hard time with that. When I start feeling it sticky, I start going for broke. But how's the Northeast, Austin? I'm curious. How's it feeling up there? Is it cooling down?
Vermont is actually like just like good now, finally. So we've been climbing up there a little bit. Vermont's totally good. New York's still a little bit hit or miss. I'm going to go out to the Gunks today and probably just hang out, support my buddy. But it's like 60s, 70s right now in New York, which is reasonable, but not amazing. But I think in the next few weeks, it's going to be basically perfect. And I think, like you said, the season is long, and I think the long season this year is going to be a pretty big one for the Northeast, hopefully. I don't want to jinx anything, but I think people are starting to get psyched on like developing around here and putting up hard things, and it seems like it's going to be a big one, I'd say.
That's exciting.
That's awesome, man.
All right, you guys had some tips there, but I feel like the tips were really just that you guys are hardcore. You're always climbing outside, even if it's hot or not. I guess I am a more normal person who just, when it's 100 degrees. Yeah, because Carlo, when you said it's pretty hot in the gym in Sacramento in the summer, pretty hot is like, oh, it's only like 98 today. It didn't even go into triple digits. I feel like as I led up to the season, I've been doing some trad climbing out at like Lover's Leap. Just doesn't matter if it's hot. You're just, you know, climb on rock and it's not too hot. And then a little bit of sport climbing, and then just eking into bouldering outside. And
don't forget the golf, Josh. You've been golfing.
Oh, I've been golfing. Yeah. But watch how you can throw your back out, evidently. My thing is just that I'm always a little too jumpy, spending too much time on the boards. Like I can't put as much weight on my feet. I forget how to like use the friction. I'm like over gripping instead of kind of just sticking. And yeah, I like the idea of not rushing into it, Carlo. Like it's there. Get a few sends under your belt to kind of get that ball rolling. I mean, that's what I did this past week. I was like, oh, I kind of remember how to climb. Okay, I tried hard. Maybe it's not, limit bouldering, but I was like, I got a couple in my pocket already. I love that beginning of the season. As long as you don't get hurt, means you got a good couple of months in front of you.
In the Northeast, we call those safety sends. I don't know if that's a Northeast thing, but
I've heard of that. I've heard of safety sends. Just to feel like you've ticked something.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what is it called though when you want to do your project that day and you often go to like something that's 3 grades below and you do that?
Adam's term is ego snack.
Ego snack.
Dude,
Nice.
that guy loves the ego snacks. When I got him on the pod, he was just talking about stoking that ego with a hard board sense. I think it's definitely a cool young psych kid style to just be like, I'm going to fucking do it. I'm going to try hard and I'm going to send everything. And now I'm definitely more like, I don't want to waste all my skin and effort on my safety send.
I do have one thing I want to shout out before we move on is I've been climbing a bunch more on the TB2 recently just because I'm trying to get my fingers like in like a better state. And, obviously when it's really warm in the gym, it's like not that awesome to like be digging into like small holds on boards and stuff. And so I kind of like don't push it that hard during the summer in that way. But lately I've been like, okay, I need to get my fingers back in check. And the best way to do it is in the gym, especially is on the board. And so I've been climbing like a lot more on the TB2, still getting my ass whipped on there because it's hard as shit for me. But I will say that Will's climbs on there are the hardest for me.
They're so hard.
Climbs. Dude, like what's going on, man? Like, I swear, I
don't know, man.
I'm like, maybe at the 7C plus level on everything else, and then on yours I'm like, if I see a V6 from Will, I'm just like, I'm fucking in for it. Like,
Skip.
So funny.
I don't know what it is, man. I'm like, I keep thinking I'm gonna message you too and be like, yo, what the hell is this shit? I can't touch this thing. I mean, it's good. I love that because I love being pushed like in a way that I'm not usually pushed, and I think that your climbs push me in a way that I'm not usually challenging myself, and so I kind of love that. I love finding that. That's why I've climbed a lot with Jimmy in the gym and tried to climb a lot with Jimmy in the gym, is because he climbs really big and really powerful. And like, it's a way of kind of getting me out of my comfort box, and I find that your climbs kind of do the same, but in a very different way than I'm used to. So thanks, but no thanks. Dude,
I gotcha.
No ego snacks there.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's partly what's so cool about all of it. And I think I'll try not to make this the long version, but like, I think there's something very cool about boards is you have this fixed thing. It's like, it's standardized. It's not changing. And then we all get to sort of set on it. And I move in a particular way. You move in a particular way. Quinn moves in a particular way. And when we go about setting things and the way that we think about different movements and like the way Quinn likes to generate momentum versus the way that I do, it's not always something where you can watch somebody and be like, oh, I'm going to describe to you what they're doing. And then you can learn from my description and then try and go do it yourself. The communication is via the route setting, not a verbal description. And so like when people talk about working strengths and weaknesses, a lot of times they're like, oh, like I'm weak at pulling. And then their answer to that is they're like, well, I'm going to go do more pull-ups and then I'll be stronger at my weakness and then I'll be better. And it doesn't always work like that. I think reframing it more as like, especially on something like a board where, I have my style. When I climb my boulders, they don't feel like it feels like when you climb my boulders. But when I try to climb Quinn's boulders, dude, it's a similar feeling, but like, that's how I'm learning and improving on my weakness is like, I'm actually learning how to climb differently. I'm not just couching it in some physical deficiency that I would then go not climb in order to improve. It's like, that's a backwards way to think about it, I think. And I really enjoy the boards because I can climb on Carlo's boulders and Austin's boulders and Josh's boulders and Michael's boulders and Quinn's boulders. And everyone has that different style. And I can learn about it and improve myself by interacting with those actual things. That is easily my favorite thing about board climbing, like full stop, is just that opportunity is something that outside of a board is harder to come by.
Yeah. I'm used to get my ass kicked by Will's boulders, and I tried your boulder, Carlo. Some 8A you put up. I thought I was going to flash it. And then that last move must be very Carlo, because it was, then I thought I was going to hurt my shoulder trying to do it. So I want to see Will try Carlo's boulder and see if the opposite, because yeah, Will, you are famous for having some kind of leggy, I don't know, man. I just don't, I don't quite understand it. Although when I back off the angle and I can do it, like I've been playing with this one called By the Sword, which is a V10 at 40. And I climbed it yesterday at 25 a few times, and just, I was like, oh, I see what he's doing. It's just, I have to do it at a V6 level, not a V10 level. And it's,
yeah. Isn't that cool? Isn't that sick?
Your boulders are very in the shoulders. Yeah.
Shoulders and hips.
Yeah. The hips, I've found the hips work really well for me. I feel like the hip aspect of it works really well for me on your boulders, but the shoulder range is strange for me, where like I feel comfortable in these tighter boxes, but then there's this extension that happens out of the shoulders that like becomes problematic for me, where I end up having to kind of bounce out of this position that I would like to stay static in, you know?
That's how I do it too, though, is bounce.
You do bounce. Yeah. Okay.
It's like these really weird generations for dead points out of weird extended positions, or from a small position expanding out and then having to catch in what is kind of a weird position where it's not, I always describe it as like a lot of different things have to happen all at the same time. None of the individual things are particularly difficult. Like the thing that's hard is making all of those things happen at the right time, like in the right order and whatnot. I've said it a million times. I'm not like physically like all that strong, but typically the thing I would describe myself as being fairly skilled at is like getting all the right things to happen all at the same time, which makes it seem like something really hard is happening. But I kind of feel like I'm cheating a little. Like physically it's not that hard, but execution wise, like it can become relatively difficult to do.
Well, you can tell that you've made it really far in the route setting side, commercially and elsewhere, because a lot of your power and tension in the boulders is based around foot placement, where like you are able to create that tension through the positioning of the feet rather than just through the positioning of the hands. Because a lot of the times it's like the hand positions, if the feet fit where they were supposed to go, then they wouldn't be that difficult, but you create a lot of the difficulty through interesting foot positions. I think a lot of, people that are early setting on the boards or early to setting don't quite know how to like make it, because it's really easy to make it really awful to climb on by doing that. And it's really hard to find that balance of like, hey, this does work. And it actually isn't terrible, but it does create this kind of extra level of tension that you're not going to find elsewhere throughout the body. And it makes for a lot more interesting movement a lot of the time. So, no, I appreciate that aspect of it. I think that tends to be how I set more of the time. And so I appreciate that side of it. I just think that like the box and the situations that you kind of operate in are a little bit different than I like work around, So for me, it feels hard for sure. You got to earn them, which is cool. So
I don't know if the internet or the world knows that Will is tall and jacked. I feel like I just want to put this out there that you are taller and more muscular than I think people. That explains some of your boulders. I'm always like, damn, dude, like this is really, really far away. And I'm like, all right, yeah, Will, yeah, just I don't know. We have a diversity of sizes here, and that's also one of the fun things is that. Not to say that you're setting morpho boulders, Will, but
sometimes I do on purpose. Like this is for me. Y'all aren't going to like this one.
Interesting. I also just, before we move on, I got echo what you said there where I'm not a super experienced setter. And when you look at a lot of my board stuff, you'll probably see I'm more in my hands. When you think about boards, I often think about hands and pulling, but that in route setting, the really next level is all about the feet. And I've set with people who really thought feet first on setting, which is always interesting where they literally, I just can't help it. I always think like, oh, this side pull should lead to this instead of always looking down and thinking, but what if I got my foot up there then what would this move be? And so, yeah.
I have to preface that with saying though that like basic foot situations, so like feet that kind of serve the move, it's not an inherently bad thing. Like it happens a lot outside, and sometimes those are some of the best climbs outside, where like you literally find like a hand position and a foot that work perfectly. Like you're like, wow, that foot is exactly where I want it. And it makes this move possible, like in a way that you wouldn't be able to do elsewise. But then there's other situations where like you can find a hold set that would maybe be too easy normally, but you can make it more difficult and have more tension to it and have more things to learn from it by adjusting the foot positions. And I think that good root setters do a good job of being able to utilize both and know when they're utilizing both and being like, okay, on this one, this type of move, I'm going to give you everything you want to accomplish that. And then on this one, it would be too easy if I gave you what you wanted, or it wouldn't do what I'm looking for. So now I'm going to create a foot situation that pulls more out of you on that side of it. And I think that's good root setting, is when you can kind of do both and you know when you're doing both. It's not like an accident.
Yeah, I think that's a tough thing, especially when a lot of a crew is newer or hasn't always climbed at a higher level, because a lot of times you do get what you want. But a lot of what makes difficult bouldering more and more difficult, like the holds can be big, surprisingly big. But it's everything else, that you have to do that ultimately makes a thing hard. And like when your experience of boulders becoming harder and harder is, well, the holds are getting smaller and they're getting farther apart. There's only so far you can push that, before you can't do it anymore, or it isn't enjoyable in any sense of the word. Usually that happens first. It just becomes like, I didn't come in here to do this. Like that's not going to be fun. And then no one ever climbs on that boulder. Just to echo what Carlo said, like that is what I would consider good root setting, but it is tough to know how to do that if you've never experienced it. And so that's one of the things where I think route setters, I think, need to be climbers first. It's okay to really like route setting and not be as worried about your personal goals and really want to deliver really cool route setting to people. And I'm all about that. But I think you have to love climbing and continue to explore and be a student of it if you want to actually improve your route setting. You can't just route set and expect to improve. That my thought, at least. I don't want to put that on anybody.
Yeah, route setting 101 is like understanding what climbing movement is and how your body moves, because you're not going to be able to set well with intention unless you understand those things. But yeah, I'm curious what Austin thinks though, in terms of coming up because you set, Austin, and you, I know you've set a lot on the boards as well, but you set, in commercial gyms, and I'm curious, what your come up was in the setting world and how you were kind of taught, and, how kind of movement has, helped kind of educate your setting experience.
For sure. I was going to bring that up. I was going to say, when I came up in a gym that was mainly focused on youth climbing. And my coach set for us basically, but he had ways to set things that were V10 for me, who was barely 5 foot, and V10 for him, who was almost 6 foot, but they were the same grade and they climbed the same still. And it all comes back to the foot positions and forcing you to use the holds that are on the wall and need to be used. And then I was going to tie it all back into a competition setting as well. And I think, like you guys are saying, you can have jug halls almost that trick the best climbers in the world because of the way the feet are placed. I set this coordination move at the gym the other day, a method, and it looks like it should be an easy run across, but then you look at the feet and the end position makes no sense. And now you have to figure out how you're going to stop all your momentum without a foothold exactly where you want it to be. And I think when you understand how to do a move and understand the positions of the climb, then you kind of understand how to set it. And it also kind of goes back the other way. If you understand how to set a move and how to force a sequence, you most likely understand how to climb it too.
How does your experiences outside inform or influence your route setting?
I think a big part of it for me is I grew up with Adam and Noah and all these guys who were so incredibly strong and can jump through a lot of sequences. And that was never me. I was always like, okay, let me find this drop knee or this like really weird heel hook or something. And how am I going to make this move easy? And I think that influenced my setting style, where I'm like, now I mostly set at a method, which is like more comp style and jumping around and stuff. But I think it relates. Like now I'm like, okay, I'm going to set a move that's really hard to do, but when you do it right, it's really easy.
Oftentimes you can make a move feel easy by setting something with a foot position that may feel awkward to get into, may be hard to get into, and then you get in there and you feel locked in, and all of a sudden it unweights your hands, lets you do something. But sometimes I really struggle, especially outside, to decide whether to commit to that body position that can be just as hard to get my body into that position versus like jumping through it. And I know that in general, it's better to keep your feet on, because oftentimes as things get harder, keeping your feet on is mandatory. But I always struggle between like, wow, it feels really physically difficult to get into this position. But once I'm there, I'm solid, and making that decision over just kind of being like, I'm going to thug my way through it, which oftentimes indoors you can, but outdoors you can't.
I feel like one thing I tell like a lot of the kids that I coach and is like, I feel like you have to decide which move you want to make easier. So the next move is either harder or easy. So like if this first move is hard and the next move is also hard for me and I can make one of them easier, I'm just going to pick which one is harder and then try to make that one easier. I'm doing a bad job at explaining this, but I feel like no matter what, you're going to make one harder and one easier. And it's just kind of up to you to decide.
I see it very much the same way. I think of it in terms of like percentages, where like, you know, making a move more high percentage versus low percentage. And if making one move more high percentage, then, you know, makes the other move like, consequentially like way lower percentage, then it may not be worth it. But if you can kind of keep the same percentage on maybe the higher move, but then make, you know, a lower move higher percentage, then it balances out, you know? And so you're trying to find that point on the problem that's going to stop you. So like the lowest percentage moves and the lowest percentage sequences, and maybe it's a couple moves, maybe it's one move, maybe it's two moves. You know, it's hard to tell exactly where it is on each problem, but then you look at those and be like, okay, if I get my feet set up here, it's going to make this move harder, but then it's going to make that move way, way easier. And then you kind of try that and be like, well, how can I bring up that lower percentage move a little bit higher so that it meets kind of the higher percentage move there? And so you're constantly doing these calculations in your head of like, what's going to help the overall outcome, you know, of sending the climb. And a lot of times, I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've adopted a harder overall sequence in favor of a higher percentage solution, you know, but that obviously changes if you've got a really long kind of like approach to those sequences, you know, like maybe it's 10, 15 moves of climbing to get into that. Then sometimes a quicker move that, even if it's, you know, lower percentage, something that's like a dead point or a jump through stuff, can be better because you've got less moves, less things to be kind of like at top level for, essentially. And so you really have to just get a feel for the whole climb and then start breaking it down in terms of percentages and figure out how you want to approach each one. But having more solutions to the same problem that then you can kind of weed through. So finding a lot of different sequences that do work can help with that. And sometimes you might arrive at the point where you only have one solution that works. And then that's easiest usually, because you're like, well, I've only found one way to get through this move, and I've only found one way to get through that move. And so I just got to do it this way. And that can be easier. Whereas sometimes, you know, I might have a solution to a move, but then I'll go back and find 2 or 3 other solutions to that move that would maybe feel harder, but higher percentage to get through. And then you've got some choices to make. You can be like, okay, maybe I'll apply that because it's going to save me for that or this and that. And so I think just when you see climbers that are new to the sport and they find the one way that they can do something, that can lead you off trail, and it cannot, you know, it cannot get you up the climb faster than approaching it other ways. Cause sometimes even if I can do a move one way, I don't think I'm done with that move necessarily. I will still try to find other ways to do it that would maybe help for, moves later on. So it seems counterintuitive. People sometimes are like, oh, you already did that move. And I'm like, they're like, why are you trying to do it a bunch of other different ways? And I'm like, well, maybe one of these other ways actually will make the whole climb easier, even if I already found the easiest way to do this single move. So
yeah, I want to tie this into what we were talking about earlier around getting prepared for outdoors. I think that the pendulum keeps swinging in climbing, where it used to be that everyone was very static and would really work hard to find that body position to kind of make that next move easy, in the sense of their body was set up and then they just need to move a limb. And now with the more dynamic style that's evolved over the last decade or whatever, there's a lot of jumping and you go to the boards, and especially something like a moon board, you're launching and snatching. And then for me, when I go back outdoors, that's something I have to go and embrace again, where I can't just count on some in cut to swing off of. I need to take the time to get into that body position. And yeah, so that's been a big shift for me going outdoors again, is get the high feet, make that move. Maybe it feels harder to me in some ways, but it's often higher percentage, especially outdoors.
For the outdoor transition and what we're talking about now, watch less beta videos. I think if there's a style that I feel like is typified right now, I would call it mindless. There's a couple things happening here. So one, I think that exactly what Carlo is describing, and Austin too, that's the good part here. I think we would all agree with it, and we would all kind of maybe describe it different ways. Or to Carlo's earlier point about how people do things in different ways, the way that each of us approaches this particular problem is probably somewhat nuanced to the individual, but we're all kind of doing the same thing, which is, I think, based on a fundamental understanding that there's not one way to do it. There's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of ways to do any individual move, and you can kind of zoom in and out as much as you want. You can zoom way out, look at the whole route or boulder problem, zoom a little bit more in just a sequence, or all the way into just the way you're taking a particular hold with your hand or your foot or something. And it's more about zooming out and being able to net reduce your output, and how you make decisions on individual moves will increase or decrease the relative difficulty in a small scale. But if you can reduce the difficulty on a large scale, that's important. And so you might watch a beta video of someone, and if you're just trying to copy the moves they're doing, the moves that they're doing are not what the boulder problem is. You can go in there and you can do different moves and still do the same boulder problem. And depending on your strengths and weaknesses, the moves that they do might not actually match up well with what you ought to be doing. So explore more, use your brain, figure it out. If what you think you should do is different than what somebody else did, explore that, figure it out. Because even if it doesn't work, you're learning the whole time. Carlo, even if you do the move and then you keep trying it different ways, it's because when you did it, you don't know if that's the way to do the move, or it's just a way that you could do the move. And you got to explore more, accentuate different things, and figure it out. Because maybe there's another way that is ever so slightly easier, or sets you up just a little bit better, or whatever it is. I think when people just watch videos and are trying to replicate the movements that they're seeing and the beta that they're seeing, they're really missing out on just a lot.
I know so many people that the minute they know they want to go try something, they just download as many beta videos as they can to try and have something to go off of, because they want to climb it as fast as possible. So they just want all the answers. And I've always really resisted that approach. I've always seen beta videos as either perspective expanding or perspective limiting. And I think that by approaching beta videos early on is a perspective limiter, because you really only see what you've been kind of hand fed by these things. Whereas I think that the perspective expanding approach for beta videos is that you go have your process on it, try and figure out all the different ways that you would approach it. And then afterwards, you can look and see beta videos to hopefully expand what you were able to apply to it and whatnot. And I've always approached it from that side of it as like, yeah, there's beta videos out there. I'm going to go out and try and learn as much as I can, try and figure out how to apply my knowledge base to this, try and improve my knowledge base, try and build that skill set of learning and understanding beta on my own. And then if I want to expand that at all, be able to see outside of the box that I'm in, then I can go watch some beta videos and kind of expand that. But I think that it's a huge difference between those two. And I think that by going with the perspective narrowing approach of like always just watching beta videos ahead of time, you're robbing yourself of the ability to develop this skill that is extremely important for rock climbing.
I want to hear Austin's take on this because I'm like you guys where I just grew up where there wasn't beta videos until later. And so we had that opportunity of seeing it from both sides where Austin, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably had access to beta quite a bit, since you started getting outdoors.
For sure. Yeah. No, I think I'm in a funny boat because I definitely watch a lot of beta videos, but I came up climbing with mentors like Bryce Viola, who like is one of my main climbing partners now. And we work really well together and we don't get sucked into beta videos. Like, for example, when we were in Africa, we were projecting monkey wedding together and we were having a hard time on the end and we came up with a new way, like quote unquote, new way to do it. Right. And then I did it with that beta. And then I think the 4 people that did it after me also did it with that beta. And we just work really well together and never really need to watch beta videos because we kind of found that most of the time the beta in the beta videos doesn't work for us or isn't the easiest way for us. But that being said, I have done everything you guys said. I have downloaded a shit ton of beta videos. I've been at the crag.
We all have, dude.
I mean, yeah,
right.
So have we.
But I've been at the crag and I've had service and I haven't been able to do like maybe this V10 or anything. This boulder I feel like I should be able to do. And I'm like, I'm missing something, surely. And I pull up a beta video and I watch it. And now I'm like, okay, that's what I was missing. And then I pull on and maybe I'll fire it first try. And it kind of, I don't want to say it ruins the experience, but it changes the experience for sure. And I probably would have missed out on maybe some sort of learning opportunity in that instance.
Quick break while I tell you about today's sponsor. You. That's right, you. Thank you to all the patrons who help make this show possible. Join them so you can get episodes early before anyone else, and those episodes are ad-free. As a patron, you also get to submit questions for upcoming guests. The answers to those questions are only available to patrons. Follow the link in the show notes to join now. You also get access to a private Discord where you'll find me and other people who want to go from good to great. Okay, back to the pod. Just to play devil's advocate, because I always do that. And I know that this topic has been kind of making rounds on the internet right now. I saw Jesse Firestone do a good post on this as well. So my personal experience is that oftentimes beta videos make me have a worse flash. Like I find that I actually do better just kind of trusting my intuition, but I had a lot of time, to develop my intuition. But then if you're brand new, like you may not even understand what's possible. And I like that kind of distinction you made, Carlo, of like limiting versus expanding. But I also think about in the gym, how good setting often teaches you how to climb. It's like, oh, that high foot, that looks super weird. Like Austin, you set some really cool kilter board V10. I remember I messaged you about it, had like a really high foot. And when I pulled on from the ground at first, I didn't even understand what it was there for. And then it made the move. It just became obvious as I pulled on. And so sometimes I can imagine people who aren't very experienced in climbing, they go outdoors, they're like, where's the fucking tape? And then, they go, oh, I didn't even know you could heel hook a spike that small. And, I don't know. Jesse made some comment about like the long term versus the short term, but it's probably not black and white here, Yeah,
for sure. And just on top of that, when you take new climbers outside, I don't know if you guys run into this, but a lot of the times I have people asking me, oh, is that on? Like, oh, can I use that? Like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, everything's on, basically. If you're on a good climb, everything's on.
Good climb. We got to preface that by saying
that.
Yeah.
But think about it from like a vague background in experiential education. And one of the things that was really impactful for me from that part of my life is this like idea of having this cognitive dissonance, where a lot of times I feel like the way that people interact with beta videos, like when it's the thing of, oh, we're going to Joe's, so I'm going to make a list and then I'm going to download 10 videos of everything on my list and study them. And like, that's how I'm going to do these boulder problems. It's almost like an answer without a question. Like if you go to the climb first and try it, and maybe you have a horrible time, it's still valuable. But then if you go back and look at a video afterwards, like Carlo said, you're going to that video with context that is really relevant. Like you've been on the boulder, you've tried a bunch of things, and now you have all of these questions in your head about like, well, how, like I tried this worked. I wonder if people use that. Like all of a sudden there's all this stuff in your mind, and then you can watch a video and there can be value gleaned from that. To Carlo's point, like that can expand your concept of what was possible on that boulder, but it's because you had questions to ask first. When you just are presented with what looks like the answer, I feel like it shuts down that questioning part of the process, which is probably the most critical part of the process and that first step. And if you don't engage with that, you don't get to a point, Josh, where you can rely on your instinct, where you can like watch a video and be like, that looks cool, but like I'm looking at the boulder right now and I see this foot over here and I like, it's speaking to me. Like I'm pretty sure I can do it this way. You only learn that by this other process of trying to figure things out. And you only learn that by trying things and having them not work. Like being like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to use that foot. And then you use it and then you totally screw it up. You're like, damn, that definitely wasn't it. Like that was how you found out that wasn't it. And so I think people could probably engage more with that process and be less worried about those outcomes. I think Instagram is one of those things that has really created an incentive around like, every time I go out, I need to be doing something, to the point about safety sense of like, it's a failure if I go out climbing and I don't send something. I remember Dave posted or wrote something many, many years ago that was like, it's crazy. Like, I feel like if I don't go out and climb 2.8Bs, then I lost the bouldering day, because people are going out and just crushing stuff left and right. And that's just not a productive way of learning how to climb or engaging with the sport at all. But I think it's a lot of what people like feel just because of how we all kind of talk about and interact with the sport at the moment.
It's one of the most freeing aspects of like the first ascent process. And it's what has drawn me to that more than any other. It's not that
totally
I'm like
agree.
looking to like, I don't approach it from a point of being like, oh, I need to do first ascents for my career. I need to be developing in order to do this, and this. For me, it's just the fact that it's like this experience of having something that has like no found solution is such a cool approach. And it takes away even, there's no opportunity to look elsewhere for answers, and the answers have to come from essentially with the group that you're working on something with, or if you're by yourself, it has to come from within. And it's a really interesting experience to kind of go through that and solve something kind of on your own without external outputs, essentially, or even if it's in a small group, it's still like a process that is, I don't know, it feels a little bit more important and a little bit more useful. And for me, the most enjoyable aspect of climbing. And I think, my last 5 years have been, in terms of output, have felt pretty slow compared to other moments in my life when I was just repeating and climbing a ton of things. But they've felt the most valuable in terms of my own climbing, because they tend to be focused more around, learning how to climb things that have never been climbed before, and I know that approach isn't the same for everybody. And I'm not saying that the only experience that you can have in climbing is to go out and try and put up new stuff, because that's certainly not the case, but you can apply a similar mentality and a similar process to established climbs just by, focusing the information that you're bringing in, or at least like tailoring the information that you're bringing in, so that it's the most useful and you get the most out of it.
I think the meta thing here is that it's not exactly just filtering it because this is like just to go way off in the weeds, this is epistemology. It's how do we know what we know? And the reason why I bring that up is that basically learning is not dumping content into your head. Learning has to be actually achieved. You have to understand it yourself. And this just links back to, you can watch a beta video, or actually it links back to what you're talking about, Will, with the boards. And I can learn about something that maybe Will understands or maybe wants to show me by trying it, not by watching Will, not by having him tell me about it, but by experiencing it. And honestly, what's interesting too is that I learned something different than you, Will. Right? I don't learn exactly what it is that you're doing. I learn a way that I proceed through those kind of moves. And that's fun.
It's an active process. Learning is an active process. You have to try to learn. Like, full stop.
Josh is like, this isn't even on the agenda, guys.
We haven't even got to the list.
We have gone.
Podcast starts now.
Look, when I say the word epistemology, I know that I need to move on to the next thing in the docket. But
I was
all
about to talk
It's
about
all
a class I'm taking in school, so this is a good time to move on.
No, drop out of school and just go sit under some hard boulders to do first ascents. That's how you learn. That's epistemology.
You learn something.
Okay. Well, no, this is a good transition into, even though we're talking about good temps and it being cold, let's talk a little bit about the Seoul World Cup, because I watched it and it was awesome. And then Will, you actually put on the docket too, and I had a good time watching it. So, Will, why did you add the Seoul World Cup to the docket for this month?
Well, it was World Champs. So, you know.
Wait, what did I say?
You said World Cup.
What's the difference? Hold on.
This one's a big
World
deal.
Championships are like the big event with all of the disciplines all at one thing. And it used to be that the World Championships only happened every couple of years. I think now they're maybe having them happen every year. I can't remember. It's either every other year or every year now, but it used to be that, like, I think at one point they only happened like every 2 to 4 years even.
Huh.
I competed in, I think,
Okay.
I did 4 World Championships during my comp time. And so I got to compete in a lot of those, and the World Championships was renowned for bringing in everybody. Like, you know, a normal ISO for bouldering would be, you know, 100 people or something like that at a World Cup, maybe even less than that. And I remember sitting in an isolation at a World Championships in bouldering with over 200 competitors, because you're pulling in, like, some of these countries were only sending their athletes to the World Championships. Essentially, they weren't sending them to the full World Cup circuit. And so just want to differentiate between the two. The World Championships historically has been like,
to educate me. I'm embarrassed.
because you threw a World Cup out there, you know, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it is today in terms of competitiveness. It might be very similar, but I do know historically the World Championships have been kind of like the top shelf of competition in terms of the amount of people competing. Obviously now the Olympics is, you know, around that in some ways, but I think just within the IFSC, the World Championships is definitely like kind of the top, you know, tier. So.
All right. Well, Will, did Carlo just tell us why you added it to the docket?
Yeah. Like, we gotta talk about it.
That makes sense.
Like, and the flex is like, if you crush the World Cup season, and, you know, there's like a podium for the World Cup season, and then if you can also win the World Champs, you're the shit. And then if you can do it in both disciplines, and then if you could do it in both disciplines across the whole season, and then also show up at World Champs and crush there. It's a kind of a cool thing. Like, it's like, in a way, it's kind of like the Super Bowl or the World Cup, but it's also kind of a leveler where it, just because you did or didn't do well in the season doesn't mean you can or can't compete in World Champs, as far as I can tell, unless some rules have changed. So it's cool to be like, all right, you're competing and you're really consistent across the circuit. And then can you also show up on like this one comp that also has this like heightened level of pressure and kind of performance output, because it's all these different disciplines in the same comp. And it's pretty sweet.
Can I ask one more clarifying question? Just because, again, obviously I need to be educated. It's still IFSC, and is it the same like route setters? Is the whole format the same? Like, is there anything else I'm missing that is somehow unique to World Championships versus World Cups?
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same overall. I think they've opened up the schedule a little bit more to allow more time throughout the event, so that it's not people want to do bouldering, lead and speed like all at once, they can do more of it with more rest periods. So I think the overall calendar has opened up. I used to compete, I think every single world championships I did lead and bouldering. So I was qualified for both and able to do both. I think nowadays it's a little bit more separated. I think there's definitely a lot of people that are still doing both, but there's definitely more specialists in one or the other than there used to be. So I think the world championships as well, there's a little bit more of like and I'm not totally up to date on like the exact, quotas that are allowed these days, but I do remember that there were a few more slots available for each country to send people to the world championships than there were for people to be on the World Cup circuit consistently. So
there's good rounds. So I don't know what it is, but like the women's bouldering rounds kind of always end up being my favorite. And this was kind of no exception. And having Kyra in the commentary box was really cool. She had some awesome insight. And one of, I think the coolest ones, because you see this all the time and it's fun to kind of like watch the competitors go through this. But she talked a lot about like not getting on the wall with a minute left. Like a minute, if there's a minute on the clock, that is the worst time to get on the boulder. Because, and she says this, y'all should go back and watch the commentary and listen to her words. But, basically it only ever takes about 40 seconds max to like get through one of these boulders. And so if you get on with a minute left, like even if you, like you're just cheating yourself out of that 15 to 20 extra seconds of rest, which is actually a long rest time. Like if you've ever done like your hangboard repeaters and stuff, the difference between taking like 5 seconds and 25 seconds of rest is massive. It may sound inconsequential, but like an extra 20 seconds of rest is like a huge deal.
I do want to preface this by saying, the only time that I totally agree with Kyra on that. I think people sometimes rush to get on. The only time that I've found that it's beneficial to get on a little bit earlier is when you have a really like low percentage first move of a boulder that's not.
Yeah, like if
difficult.
You think that you're gonna need another try for sure. Yeah.
There's a few where I've pulled on and I'm like, I should probably rest a little longer, but I think it's going to take me a couple of tries to stick this first move again. And so you don't want to go into it thinking that you're going to try and stick it right away. But if you want to get enough attempts in, you're going to be like, okay, this is a very risky move that I barely have stuck before. And I know I'm going to need a couple tries to stick it again. And then you go for it. And so I just want to preface it. It's not always like, don't get on the wall at 1 minute left. You do have to calculate a bit, but I agree. I think people sometimes are just like, they think of 1 minute as like, oh my God, I need to go. And then they finish their try and they've still got 20 seconds on the clock or whatever. And then they're like, wait a second, I could have rested a little bit longer here.
It was just cool. It was like a cool level of analytical insight that I feel like we don't always get in these commentaries. And so I really dug that. And I mean, Melina, like, are you kidding? That was so cool. When she came out on that first boulder and like the look in her face of like surprise, like, holy shit, did I really just like flash that? And then to podium, like after not being on the circuit for such a long time, that was just so cool to see. And I didn't have any spoilers when I watched it. So I got to kind of go on that ride too, which is really just engaging to watch. It was so cool. And the kind of Oriane Yanya back and forth was amazing. Like it just, the sort of the drama through that round was really cool. That was one of my favorite rounds I think I've seen in quite some time, just as a spectator.
I agree. And I saw an interview Oriane did after the competition, and someone asked her a question about Yanya and how it feels to be like competing with her and this and that. And Oriane response was, she thinks that Yanya knows it's closer than ever, and she's looking forward to next season. And I thought that was just like the hardest quote of all time.
Ooh, that's awesome. I like that.
Yeah.
I loved what I just want to echo what you said, Will, about just being a great round. And I am a Melina super fan. I have done a few pods with her and they are some of my favorite ones ever. And I also watched it live. And so I just watched it unfold. And what also made me really think of was, Carlo, you said something about how you wish IFSC would do more behind the scenes. And really why it was such an exciting round for me is because I've been following Melina for a long time. It was cool to see her get to be on stage. It was cool to see Annie Sanders out there too, and see two American women out there that weren't Natalia and Brooke. Of course, I love Natalia and Brooke, but also cool to see, the young up and comers. And then Yanya's Yanya, Orion. I mean, been watching her for a while too. And just, I had a lot of story built up on each person. And I just wish, could you imagine if IFSC had like a Melina Costanza, underdog clip for 5 minutes even, or if it was on YouTube the day before. This is totally a different sport, but I've been watching Olympic weightlifting, and there's a world championships that are happening right now. But on the lead up, there's a YouTube channel that does big backgrounds on every single competitor. And you get hyped for that story as it comes in. And so for me, just watching it live, knowing that I wanted to see Melina, have a great debut, it was really, really exciting. And then when I watched men's bouldering, I didn't have that same, look, I love seeing Mejdi, but without the story behind it, just lost a little bit of the intensity that the women's one did for me.
I didn't get to watch personally. I watched some clips and stuff with some problems and saw a little bit of it, but I've been busy the last couple of weeks and didn't get a chance to really follow along and haven't had a chance to catch up. I love watching those things when I have time to, but it's been harder and harder to have time to sit down and watch it all throughout. And then once you just get served the results, it becomes a little bit harder to like want to go back and see all of it. But I did spend some time with Jacopo Larcher up in Tahoe this last week, and he had flown directly from Seoul to South Lake because he was setting the lead competition in Seoul, and he sets for a lot of the World Cups and is a good route setter. And he had some kind of interesting, kind of backhand knowledge of the way the comp was run and whatnot. And I thought it was an interesting way of thinking about stuff. And this is different from like the top end kind of performance aspect, but the weather was really warm and humid over there. And they had kind of a combination of indoor and outdoor walls. And obviously the indoor spaces are a little bit easier to control the climate. Even if the climate's bad, it's consistently bad in the gym. It doesn't change. And then there was some either qualifying or later rounds that happened outdoors that the environment changed kind of rapidly depending on where the sun was at or the time of day and whatnot. And it brought back a lot of memories that I had where I did my last world championships that I was in was in 2018. And it was in Innsbruck, and it was at the KI gym, and I think they did the lead indoors, but I think they did the bouldering qualifiers all outside. And I went into ISO in the morning, but I wasn't supposed to climb until later in the afternoon. And when I went into ISO, I went in with a down jacket on. It was like freezing outside. And the first competitors, who are usually the top qualified, the people that are doing the best on the World Cup circuit, get to climb first. They all got to climb in cold, sticky conditions and climbed really well. And then by the time I was on the wall, the sun was on the wall. It was 80 degrees probably, and just absolutely brutal. And it was pretty infuriating as a competitor, to be honest, to have, such different conditions throughout the day and to not have, an environment that was, it's obviously never going to be perfect. I don't think it can be perfect, but there was really no attempt at having an even playing field for all the competitors. And it made it feel really hard to do well in it if you weren't, being consistent enough with the World Cup circuit that you were going to, qualify at least high enough to be able to compete earlier in the day. And there were some athletes. I think Adam even kind of was upset because he hadn't competed in that many comps that year. And so he actually was qualified later. And I remember talking to him in ISO, and he was kind of furious because he's like, it's like insanely good out right now when we walked into ISO. And then he was like, I know I'm going to need to climb at a much higher level than everybody else to get through. And not only is it taxing for that round, but your skin, your energy, everything takes a hit that factors into everything that happens throughout the rest of the competition. And, I was not that far off from making semifinals, in that comp. And there's been a few comps that I've been close to in that way. And I honestly felt like if I had just climbed earlier in the day, I would have easily made semifinals.
So what did Jacopo, did he say that they did anything to mitigate? Like, what was the route setting side or the comp organizers? Did they try to do anything or acknowledge it?
He said that they still have not fully acknowledged the inherent, inequalities in that, and that they have not made any sort of meaningful improvements on that. And he said that from a route setting standpoint, it was also really difficult because some of the routes they set inside and then moved them outside, or, vice versa. And so they felt like they were setting an environment that was much different from what the competitors were in. And it's impossible at that point to know, because they didn't know exactly what the environment was going to be when it got brought outside. Or maybe if they were setting it one week and it was better conditions, and then the next week it was worse conditions. When it's in an outdoor environment that isn't controlled, then, even the setting can be affected. So if you see issues with results or issues with sequences or holds that people aren't able to hold on to, it may be due to that rather than just a failure on the route setter's standpoint. And so I think I would make a plea to IFSC that all events need to be indoors, from now on. And I know that sucks from a spectating standpoint, but I would say that I would rather see less exciting outdoor events and more fair, fair climbing competitions by being able to control the conditions a little bit more.
Maybe they need a big glass box.
They do. Yeah.
Route setting is clearly a hugely important part of the results. And it makes me think of boulder number 4 in women's, where it was very powerful. And there is a wildly burly move that ended up with kind of a double biceps facing out towards the crowd move. And when you watch Yanya do that move and you see her level of strength and muscularity compared to the rest of the group, it makes me think that in some ways it was, I don't want to say unfair, but it's like, that's her strength. That like she did not do as well on the other boulders as Orion did. And Will, how do you think you can balance this? You want to make it fair, but in some ways it's never going to be fair. It's all about the show and the moment. And I remember talking to Garrett Greger, and he talked about how, look, we're just trying to put on an event, and it's impossible to really have things being perfectly fair. And that's not what sports are. But any thoughts on that, Will, just how to deal with that balance?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard. I think it's a big open question as far as what the appropriate way for like route setters to interact with the field is. I mean, even the Olympics, where they kind of introduced these category names like electric and whatever,
Electric.
I think there have been attempts at kind of trying to make this a little bit more transparent, like as far as what's being asked of the athletes in a round, or what you're supposed to ask of the athletes in a round. There's just so many things to test in climbing. And if you have 4 or 5 boulder problems or 1 lead route, you may not hit everything. And I think if there's one thing about kind of at least the current take, and I, we saw this in the World Champs in Korea, I just feel like the relative distribution of the skills that are being tested doesn't really match what rock climbing presents. I'm trying to say it carefully because I don't want people to think that I'm saying it's not rock climbing or blah, 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 or shouldn't be any parkour moves. It's more like, yeah, like laches are cool. You like the whole dyno to lache to cordo combo. We've seen it a million
times.
Men's
number 1? Is that
men's number 1? It's fine, but that should be the only one then. It's like when there's like, oh wow, there's 3 laches in this round. Like, get out of here. That's annoying to me.
I do think they got a lot better with that, though.
I think they have. Like, I think the women's number 3 boulder, I thought was amazing. And I thought the men's round, these were quite balanced rounds, I thought. And that last women's boulder, I really liked. That was like rock climbing 101. Like, it was so sick, but it also managed to get like perfect separation. It was
a little bit
exciting to watch. It was a cool test for the athletes. Like, it was sick. And there was no lache cordo. And that was, at least for me, like the most engaging of the boulder problems. And so like, I thought it was a really cool round. I thought the I mean, for all the problems that they had to deal with, like you're talking about, Carlo, with the climate, I thought the rounds were quite good. The only thing that sucked was that there was a count back on the men's lead podium.
I want to preface too, the temperature and condition of the competition, I think, matters most in those qualifying rounds, mainly because you've got more people spread out through a longer period of time competing. And so you have the biggest chance for conditions to change. Obviously, the way finals are run, yeah, there's an issue if you've got the setters setting in one condition and then the climbers climbing in another condition. But generally, because you've got a smaller amount of competitors in a smaller window, the actual conditions end up being very similar for the athletes. And that's where I'd argue it's fine if the conditions are bad for everybody. Like that's an equal playing field if they're the same conditions for everybody going through it. And so maybe you can keep the outdoor element of it for those later rounds, because it doesn't matter if it's bad for everybody because they're all in a relatively small window. But those qualifying sessions need to happen in the best, most controlled condition environment possible, you know?
Well, and I think that's also like the key part of the fairness. Like, as long as even if it's bad, as long as it's bad for everybody or whatever, then you're fine. And as far as like being fair with styles, like, I think I don't know what would be unfair about it. Yeah. Like it's still everyone on the same boulder problems. And at the end of the day, like, it just, the boulders in the round are the boulders in the round, and you do your best and everybody does. And we see who wins. You'll hear athletes sometimes be like, oh, like it just wasn't my round or whatever. Like there are too many of this kind of boulder or not enough of this kind of boulder or whatever. And it's just coping.
Loser talk.
The best climbers in the comps, it's like every round is their round because they've made it that way by training.
You have to be ready for everything.
For that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember Garrett said something along those lines where you just have to figure out how to make your impact felt. And I really like that he was talking about Steph Curry.
Steph.
Curry.
Wow,
Damn.
Wow.
I don't know, man.
Even I knew
I've seen
that.
him. I used to go to those basketball games. Okay, that's really embarrassing too. Lots of education going on. But just that, he wasn't super tall. He wasn't going to be out there dunking, but he figured out how to be one of the best in his own way. And this is kind of like goes back to all the things we were talking about with climbing and figuring out your own way and not, I'm just going to go down this basketball analogy. If he was just trying to dunk like LeBron James or something always, that wouldn't ever work out for him because he's not 7 foot. And so,
speaking of that, I mean, Steph was able to essentially get so good at one element of basketball that fit him well that the whole game of basketball had to change around him, And I do think that there's ways in climbing, there's ways elsewhere that can do that. A lot of the top end climbers find ways to really excel in one direction, and they can incidentally affect the whole sport and the trajectory of the whole sport by doing that, But, you can also achieve it by just overall excellence, which, I'd say in the basketball terms, that'd be like the LeBron comparison, where it's like, he's not exceptional at one specific thing like Steph is necessarily, but he's just really, really good all around, and that's what's made him really good. And so I think there's a lot of different ways to approach it. So
it is interesting because I think it is fair for us to poke and prod at things being fair or not fair, and that you want to respect the athletes and make them feel like all the hard work they did is worth it and they show up on a level playing field. But then the other side of things is that when you're a competitor, there is no complaining. There is just what's right in front of you. You just have to show up and do your best. And if you have anything in your head like, but this one isn't built for me, I'm too big or small or whatever, it's like, that's just fucking loser talk. And it's a interesting thing that you have to just leave all that baggage behind and just show up and do your best. And
yeah, when I've trained people for World Cups and trained them for getting better at like that high level competition, I will set intentionally shitty climbs that they have to motivate themselves for. In a competition, like you're not trying to get motivated by like the quality or the perceived quality of the problem. Sometimes you turn around and you're like, fuck, this looks awful. And I have got to do it and try very hard to do it. And there's been many, many comps where I've not been psyched about what I turned around to. And it is a skill to be able to apply yourself at a really high level to those types of things and to not allow yourself to kind of mentally shut down when you see something that doesn't fit your like, perceived good climb. And I think it's gotten better. Like the route setting has gotten a lot better, but there were quite a few early World Cups and early events that I did where I turned around and I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here climbing on this thing. This is terrible. Or like they'll intentionally put just really nasty grips on the wall that are really uncomfortable to grab because they're good at weeding people out. And, making things uncomfortable is a great way to separate, competitors. And so you can grow a lot as a climber and as a person to figure out how to motivate yourself in those situations.
That was back. Do you guys remember when Mohammed Jafari won the ABS Nationals?
Yes.
That's why he won. He wanted to win. And it was this so ill boulder. Everybody else who turned around to that boulder problem didn't want to win. They were not climbing on it like they wanted to win. And they were like mono crimping on stuff. It was heinous. It was like objectively disgusting what they were asking the athletes to do. But Muhammad turned around and was like, I'll fucking do it. And everybody else was like, I don't really want to. And then they didn't, and he did, and he won. Like the question was, who wants to win? And Muhammad raised his hand and nobody else did. So you got to be ready for that. That can change the podium.
Okay, guys, let's move on. Eclectic, different climbing achievements on the docket. It was cool to go to the World Cup. Let's just go outdoors. Now that's good temps for a moment. And just wanted to shout out Zach Galla doing Hypnotized Minds. It's funny because in today's world of V19 being sent so often, just, Hypnotized Minds is, I don't know, I'll say it's V16. I think it was put up as a V15. It seems to have settled on that. I wouldn't know. I've only fondled it and climbed the stuff next to it. But it's funny how this boulder has a little bit of mythic status, and we've even talked about it on this pod, and it comes up on the pod all the time, actually, interestingly. So amazing. Good job, Zach. I'm going to just make a little prediction here that I think this will open the floodgates on that boulder as being something that gets repeated by, I was going to say Zach's generation, but I guess he's actually getting a little older. So I'm going to say, there's going to be maybe your generation, Austin. When I say Zach's older, I feel like he's like 26 or something, but I bet you it gets done more often. I bet you it gets seen as kind of like, something that must be done in that grade range in Colorado, where before it kind of sat there and was like, I don't know, I'll tick off every other one but that. But yeah, good job, Zach.
I kind of disagree, actually, Josh. I disagree. I don't think it's going to get done as much as people think it is. I think it stands out in that grade range, and I think in style.
Awesome.
That you do have to be pretty like Zach is on one right now. Like he is exceptionally strong right now and just climbing at like a really, really high level. And I think everyone that I've talked to that's been climbing with him recently says that he's kind of a notch above right now. It's very hard to get it in good conditions. It's really only good right now, like this time of year before the first snow comes through. And any other time of the year in the spring, it's pretty wet a lot of the time. It snows a lot and seeps a lot and whatnot. And I do think, obviously, yeah, as problems age, you're going to see more ascents. I don't think I see it as something that's going to become like everyone in this generation is just going to kind of tick through it, because it is different, in my opinion. I've tried that one a lot. I got really close to it in like 2013. I climbed on it a lot with Daniel when it was a project. I think Daniel was on one when he did it. He was exceptionally strong, and it fits Daniel's style to an absolute T. Like it is literally just a Daniel block in the best possible way. I found it to be hard to actually finish it. Like I felt really good on all the moves. I did it in 2 overlapping pieces. Those 2 overlapping pieces I could do very, very regularly, and actually putting the whole thing together with skin and with everything was not easy.
Sounds like maybe we should make a little wager here. Sounds
like
perhaps I'm going to say 2 people in the next year. So a year.
I think I agree with Josh. I agree with Josh.
Yeah. I'll put $100 on it. I'll just
yeah. Sure,
what do you think? 2 people?
I hope you're right. I think we, as the world, underappreciate like that line. I think Daniel was as ahead of his time when he did that as we give Nale the credit on Burden. I think it's just easier to get to than Burden. But I mean, look, how many ascents does Burden have, and how many ascents does Hypnotized Minds have? Like,
That's true.
That's a good point.
Hypno is messed up. I climbed on it quite a bit. It's a brilliant piece of climbing. Like, it is so cool, but it is so demanding. And I could just gush about it. It's so sick, but it is so hard. And it would be
how
cool
about
if
Rustam, huh?
Yeah, kind of pissed it.
That's one of the
even when I think about it.
Yeah, it's one of doing that in the summer months as quickly as he did, and he just took an absolute shit on it. Is just, I think that boulder fit him better than anything else I've ever seen anyone fit.
He used slightly different beta, right?
Slightly,
Barely.
but not by a lot. Yeah, actually, I think he used kind of the beta that I was using, but it doesn't change things too much. It just makes it a little bit less reachy in some ways. But no, I mean, the guy, and I talk about weight in this way. He's very light. Like, I think he weighs for sure under 100 pounds, but or at least
under
like
100.
right. No, he might at that time, but
He was in a bad spot at that time.
Yeah, he was on a
seemed
steady
like.
diet of communism and cigarettes. And I'm just saying.
And speaking about weight, I don't want to say that, like, you know, I don't want to talk about someone's difficulties with weight or whatever. Even now, Rustam is an exceptionally light and small individual. Like, he's not, you know, it's not like he's one of those people that was like starving themselves, and the minute they started eating, they just like got really, really big or whatever. Like, he naturally is very small, like super kind of petite figure for a guy. And that's why I think that style of problem fit him really well, taking outside the whole, you know, the whole eating element, which really is just pure speculation, because I don't know what.
Yeah, let's not add the asterisk.
So
It was
I'm not
incredible.
adding it as an asterisk in there, but it was just an incredible display of you know, strength when he did that a while back. And I think that's probably also what too kept the grade at a certain level for a long time, where they were just like, well, if it fits somebody really well, then
Austin, come try it.
I know.
Yes.
It's really
So
high
sick.
on my list.
It's so cool. You're going to love it. It's really cool.
I think it looks very I don't want to say my style, but it looks like something I would enjoy a lot. So
it's
high.
like a full-on rock climb, where like Burden is very much that like board style. And while, like, you know, Hypno's not like some crazy featured boulder, but it's one of those scenarios where like the holds are so bad that you're really utilizing these kind of subtle curvatures and like positions to maneuver through. Like, it is so much more subtle than I think it might seem at first glance, or like from a video, but it is. Yeah. I don't know that I've ever like immediately kind of fallen in love with a boulder as much as that one. Like, every section is so cool.
This is why Austin sided with me, because he knows that he's going to go and do it in the next year. And
he's just one person. You said two.
I said two. I think two
I
outside of
believe
Austin.
in Austin. I believe in Austin. I'm just saying, I don't know if there's going to be anyone else.
It's going to
Thanks,
be
guys.
Adam Shahar and Noah Wheeler. And yeah, that's like my parlay too. If I get both two people right and it's those two people, I feel like I get a double pat in the back. Okay, I'm just joking, but I'm not. I really do think it's going to get done. But I do want to point out that watching Zach climb, he looks like a modern day Daniel. Like, there's a similarity with his style and power, but I don't know. Well, of course he has his own style, because everyone
He's
at that
bouncier
level
for sure.
does bouncier. And I don't want to go into this media, because I already do a podcast about boards, but watching him on Board Lords number 8,
I was gonna bring this up.
it was fascinating. He looked the more polished climber. I'm not saying that anyone was unbelievably strong or weak or whatever. Just to me, the way Zach moved was a more polished climber. And why I then point out that I think there's some more sense to come is that I still see the raw talent in that generation. I think that because Hypnotized Minds occupies a bit of a pedestal, maybe a test piece, that people will go out to do it because of that, because of what you're saying, Carlo. That
I agree.
It is something special.
For sure.
I hope so.
Okay. Eclectic docket climbing continues. I wanted to shout out Colin's winter send. Colin Haley. He did a solo winter ascent of Cerro Torre. And I just like the picture. I like the adventures. I thought it was freaking beautiful. I know how impressive it is, but I have a question for, probably this is for Carlo or Will.
Can I ask something real quick? Yeah, could you explain why it's so impressive? I don't really understand this,
Okay, let's
this
start with
era
that.
of climbing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cerro Torre is widely regarded as like one of the more difficult alpine objectives summits like in the world. And it's also really historically significant. There's been like crazy drama from like beginning to end that even extends into modern day. So it's just it's very iconic.
One of the more difficult summits in the world.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
I
fucking
see.
steep, and it's tall, steep, and weather. Yeah.
Super committing. It's a huge hike to even get to the base of it. And it takes an incredible amount of different skills to get to the top. High end, alpine rock climbing, rope management, difficulty in alpine conditions. It has like ice climbing, mixed climbing, like the whole mix. And so it challenges just like a massive gamut of capabilities essentially. And then he did it in the winter.
By himself.
That's crazy.
Okay, so Carlo, so I knew why it was impressive, but what I don't understand is how you do a solo ascent and like have ropes and make it like somehow relatively safe. It's up and down. Okay. Well, like, explain to me like the widget. I just assume you would free solo it, but then I see all these pictures and there's ropes and I understand. I just don't quite understand the widget placements and how to make it work.
I'm not exact on this, but I think according to his trip report, I think that he did obviously free solo aspects of it for sure, stuff that he felt really confident on. But a lot of it was rope solo. And I think he said this specific trip, because he soloed a few other things during this trip as well. And he said he was doing more rope soloing than ever because, he's getting older and he's just not feeling as like confident and, on the free solo side of stuff. But yeah, I think it was a mix of those things. But yeah, if you're rope soloing, you're putting an anchor in, tying the rope to that. You're soloing up something and then you're putting in an anchor, coming back down, pulling the anchor, going up. And then, so you're basically doing everything in double or, basically triple the amount.
Yeah. So do you rope solo, fix like multiple lines and then like do a summit push later? Do you see what I mean?
He did them all in a push. Yeah. And so, alpine, like rope soloing and stuff that's
a lot of stuff.
Because he's only got the rope that he's got.
Yeah.
So he has an added part of kind of the danger skill element is like when you have that much going on logistically with all of these hard skills of the actual rope soloing that is kind of underlying all of this difficult technical climbing that needs to happen across all these different disciplines, and you're alone and the conditions aren't good, like any small fuck up, like lapse in judgment, like a rope gets stuck, anything can go wrong.
You can die
so easily. And he talks about it in his trip report, just it's sort of being this high point for him across all of these different skills and things that he has developed and acquired over his whole life. And then to be able to go out and execute like that in, essentially the most dire of circumstances and keep it all together and do it and come back safe is just such an insane expression of like skill and mastery in the mountains. It's so damn cool.
I thought it was cool in his trip report too, while he was talking about being on the summit and feeling like he wanted to appreciate it more, but he was like just so anxious about getting down and like not nearly to the same degree at all. But I've been in scenarios where I'm like on the summit of something and I'm like, okay, we got to get off of here because shit's about to, like, shit could easily hit the fan. And it's like a stressful thing where you're like, okay, I did it, but I'm really only halfway done here. And there's a lot of work left. And, rappelling in the mountains is very dangerous. And especially when you're by yourself is really difficult. And yeah, I just can't imagine being on that summit in the winter alone and having to navigate all of that, in terms of rappelling the whole thing and keeping yourself focused is just it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy to me.
A statistic for a while that 50% of the people who summited K2 died on the way down? I think that for a while, I think that's an old stat, but it stuck in my head as something wild where you get to the top and you're like, okay, let's flip a coin. Like,
yeah, it's not over till it's over, man. And it's sad. There've been other recent instances of folks losing their lives, like, and you wouldn't expect it. It's just climbing is super dangerous. And yeah, you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, they summited, they did the thing, sick. It's like it is super not over. Like actually the most dangerous part is to come. And once you're actually back and safe, like then, yeah, sure, then you're done. But it's an amazing feat.
Austin, do you like mountaineering or alpine, right? Or hearing about this stuff? Like, I don't know what, I just grew up reading Krakauer, the gyms. I mean, I'm a freaking gym rat who gets out in boulders with his buddies on the weekends more often than not. And rarely do I even tie in or do trad objectives, but I still feel like this is somehow, there's a thread of what Colin did that still is tied to what Zach did and what Melina did at the World Cup. But I'm curious if that's just from my generation or if there's still that sense of adventure and appreciation of the mountains in your generation.
I think for me, there's always going to be an appreciation of the adventure in the mountains for sure. Cause I like getting out and exploring and looking for new boulders. And then it's so different, but in a way it's a little bit similar. I'm inspired in a different way. I shouldn't say I'm not inspired. I'm inspired in a different way reading about these insane mountaineer accomplishments. Cause for one, like I said, I don't understand the difference between a hard summit and a really easy summit, To me, they're all hard no matter what. They're all scary and hard and it's impressive no matter what. But yeah, they're definitely inspiring in a different way. They're inspiring in the way that I know someone worked really hard to achieve a goal that they wanted to achieve. And I can relate to that for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I just always still love it. Like when I saw that post and I know it's an eclectic thing to add to the docket, but it is still the highest level of climbing. It's maybe not the same set of skills that we practice in the gym, but it's one of those skills. You still got to have that skill on there too. And so, yeah, just wanted to shout that out. Also, just the pictures are gorgeous. I don't know. There's always just something about the stunning beauty of the mountains. And then when you see it from the comfort of your couch versus like the brutal cold and, it like looks grandiose, but then I'm sure, being on top of it and trying to appreciate it is not easy because you might die.
If y'all haven't seen it, there's like a movie documentary about David Lama's free ascent. It's called A Snowball's Chance in Hell, I'm pretty sure. Check it out. There's even a ton of controversy surrounding the filming of that, which like I get the Cerro Torre controversies continue, and they address it in the documentary, which is also really fascinating. But it was produced by Red Bull, which I'll save my thoughts about that. But anyway, the footage
you
is
don't
sick.
like that? Hold on. You don't like that? I love that Red Bull is funding this stuff.
I like it, but I don't like what they did. And if you watch the video, you will understand why. And a lot of people didn't. But check it out, Austin. I think you'll get it when you watch that. It's a pretty undeniable and kind of compelling thing to watch. It's filmed really well. And
David was probably one of the best all-around climbers that ever lived and maybe ever will live. I mean, the guy could climb 9A plus sport. I think he got up 8B plus 8C boulders and
freed Cerro Torre. Are you kidding?
Freed Cerro Torre and I mean, crazy Himalayan peaks, and literally you could put the guy in front of anything and he would climb it. He was an absolute freak. And the guy could dyno before dynoing was like a crazy thing. He came to to Boulder one year when I was setting at the spot, and he was coming in the gym and doing these dynos that were just like absolute freak. And to have somebody that was like that bouncy, that great at coordination climbing before coordination was big, but then also alpine climbing and doing all these other things was pretty crazy to witness. I actually competed against him in my first youth world championships in China. And he just destroyed all of us. It looked like he was just warming up on all the climbs. It was crazy. So I'd only been climbing for 2 years, but he was a machine. It was awesome to watch. And incidentally, actually, Jakob was one of the forerunners for the comp. And it was during the youth worlds when they used to preview the routes with someone climbing it with the sequence. And Jakob was quite a bit younger than me. And he came out and previewed our finals route, I think it was. And he just hiked the route. And then And then like, I think only like 1 or 2 people actually did the route in finals or whatever. And I'm like, who is this kid that just did our route? Like, what the hell? And it turns out, yeah, I mean, it was Jakob, like tiny little Jakob Schubert.
Yeah. Heard of that guy.
Yeah, exactly. It's just funny to see that transition through time, but yeah.
Didn't have on my good Temps bingo card the David Lama shout out. Austin, if you do watch the video, it's a great beta video for when you want to flash.
Yep.
Perfect.
Oh gosh, you guys. The eclectic thing. Actually, I'm about to transition to our ethics segment, but
we've got one more shout out, dude.
Who is it? Michaela's FA. Okay,
we got to shout out Michaela.
Okay,
sure.
Shout Michaela. Carlo, shout Michaela. I'm sorry, I just was trying to pay attention to the time. Too much stuff on the docket. Michaela Kiersch, 9A FA. I think the hardest FA by an American woman. I'm just going to put that out there.
No, we have to shout out Michaela. I mean, that's rare, you know, in today's day and age. First ascents are rare. First ascents at that level are rare. And first ascents by a woman in any capacity is pretty rare. And so I've got to give props where it's due. Somebody kind of seeking out something new. And I think Michaela has done an exceptional job of continuing to level up over the years. And we've seen a ton of crazy accomplishments from her. You know, over the last couple of years, especially. And, this is just another one, you know, kind of added to that tick list. And yeah, it is a link up. It's not as like proud as like finding and cleaning and bolting your own independent line at your own independent cliff, but those things are hard to come by. And so someone with a full-time job like her and, you know, not the easiest thing to get after in terms of development, but at least to go out and try something new, and to be able to put up something at that difficulty level is rad. So props to Michaela.
That cliff is beautiful as well.
And she's a doctor, so no big deal.
She's a doctor.
In the Northeast too.
And it's in the Northeast. Yeah.
Amazing picture too. Dude, that picture made me want to go there and try it.
I have been told about this cliff before. Someone told me to come out and check it out at one point, but I just haven't had a chance. The Northeast just always falls to the bottom of the list. I'm so sorry, Austin. Someday we'll get out there and rage, dude. I love it out there, man. I've had some great times in like Rumney and the Gunks and other places. It's hard, man. It's hard to get out there, but
well, after this season, you'll want to do a trip.
Yeah,
go visit Michaela out there.
It's climbing the list for sure.
She really is on one in the past 3 to 5 years. And when you look at that era that she came from, there's been amazing amount of strong climbers coming out of that. I saw a picture from Sierra Blair, that had her on like a podium with just, I don't know, Brooke. Everyone you can think of. I'm pretty sure Michaela was there too. I looked at all those women and all they've achieved. And it's cool seeing like the disciplines that they've kind of splintered off into. And I mean, yeah, Michaela's tick list in the last 3 or 5 years is one of the best you could ever have on some of the coolest climbs. And so, you know, seeing a first ascent come out of her too of that caliber is just another thing to add to an incredible career.
She did Dreamtime and Dreamcatcher.
Ooh,
the 2 dreams.
All the dreams.
Living both dreams. Yeah. Okay.
There's one more dream left.
Which one? Oh, Burden of Dreams. Ooh, good.
Damn. Burden of Dreams.
All right. You should be our manager or something there. Yeah. Okay. Carlo.
The triple dream.
Okay. Let's go to our new segment. We joked about this a while ago, but then you guys all seemed interested and some of our listeners were interested as well. That is an ethics segment. It is a question that we raise and then debate whether or not it's okay or not, I guess. I mean, there's always a little bit of gray area here. So I don't want it to come out as like, it has to be this way, but I do think it's fun to discuss these gray areas and it helps us understand the kind of the principles that underlie why we behave or don't behave, especially when it comes to outdoor climbing, where, you know, there's no judges out there. So I like this one. I thought I know this is going to stir up a lot of stuff. Actually, goes right into Dreamtime. Can you add a stand to a boulder that was FA'd as a sit start? Dreamtime? Is there a Dreamtime stand, Will? Have you ever heard of that?
Not as far as I'm concerned.
I think this is a 3 against 1.
Yeah.
I mean, people can do whatever they want. And to the extent that like the community recognizes it, then whatever, maybe it's fine. I don't know. But I think the thing that bums me out about the like retroactively adding the stands is like try the whole thing. It almost like gives folks an out to kind of to our conversation last time about this kind of like stolen valor in a way. And I'm like way misusing that term. Apologies. But like, if you're psyched on a boulder and you're climbing it and you do it from wherever you do it from, and you want to call it something else and feel good about it. But like, if someone's doing it to be associated with the thing without having to actually tackle the full difficulty of what the thing represents and like do that, I think it's a bummer. At the same time, I think it's a bummer when like if somebody does this like dirt burglar disgusting start to something and the first move is like a lerp to a good jug, and then you go to the top and then they get all pissed because somebody started from what, if you ask 9 out of 10 people, is probably a better start to the boulder problem. So it can go either way. For Dreamtime, like I don't consider there to be a stand. You're just working on the problem and you can't do it yet. Like that's been my experience. Like you can do it. You have done it from even a move or two lower than that. Is that like some other stand start? Do I get to grade and put another name on that and tick it off on 8A? Like
sometimes.
Yeah, it's just it's one of those,
very situational for sure.
It just doesn't feel cool. It just doesn't feel cool to me.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of the Dreamtime stand. I never have been. I thought it was ridiculous when people were suggesting that. It was like always, if I can't do Dreamtime, then I can't do Dreamtime.
What's the lore with that?
I have my own personal history with like when I first started seeing it pop up. It was around the time of my like first trips to Switzerland, and I couldn't do Dreamtime then. It was wet a lot of the time, so I didn't try it that much. But I was like very much just like, what is all this people claiming a Dreamtime stand? Like it's never existed until recently. And it felt like it was just kind of a good link of the top part of the boulder, but it definitely didn't make sense as like some way to start it. It felt like a midway point. I think the only times that I find that it's good is if it's like a very obvious kind of break in the nature of the boulder. And it's something that's easy to like to start on, like a big jug in the middle of it. That has a much harder lower bit into a huge jug, and it kind of resets the whole nature of the climb. I think that makes sense. I think that, anytime you're retroactively adding a stand to a climb that's been done from an obvious position that's much lower, I think most of the time that's just no. There's too many boulders in the world. There's too many things for you to climb on. We don't need to have multiple start positions for like one thing. I think from a historical perspective, sometimes it makes sense when something was done and it was the only way that it could get done from one place, and then a lower start became viable. I understand it from that perspective where it has historical consequences to it and whatnot. That being said, like the marble in RMNP, I think is a really stupid stand start. It basically just starts on like a one left-hand edge that you kind of barely can match. And that one, I'm like, you know what? I know it was historically done from there first as like snow was melting out and whatnot, but it's just, there's a much more viable start position down lower, and it makes a lot more sense than where this is. And so let's just get rid of the marble stand, So I think it is very situational in that way, and it's problem specific, but I think overall it's not awesome to add a stand that doesn't make sense to something that's already been done from lower. And then if there is a stand start that got put up that's a really bad starting position, and then, pretty quickly after a lower start got added, I could say that it might be worth it to just get rid of the stand position in the first place and just try and do it from lower,
I think I agree with everything you guys are saying. The only thing I don't think adding stand starts, like you guys said, is honestly ever the right answer. But if I'm developing a boulder and I think there could be a stand start here, personally, I'm not opposed to doing a stand start there first and then putting a lower start up after, because I think it kind of increases like accessibility, which I think is cool in a way. It's like maybe for a weekend warrior or something who can only get out once or twice a week, they can get out and they can feel like they're it's like their safety send, right? They get a little ego snack, and now maybe they'll come back for the lower start. And I definitely see the downsides to that as well. And I understand the criticism to that way of thinking, but I think it's definitely something that should be mentioned at least.
Oh, I was waiting for the ego snack reference because I feel like that's exactly what the fake stand starts are.
We don't like snacks, dude.
Oh, the fake ones, yeah.
Josh, do you like snacks?
Yeah, dude, I fucking love snacks. I'm a weekend wild. Take snacks to the crags.
Yeah, we don't want snacks. We want meals.
What would it be? The Dreamtime
I'd
stuff?
rather have a year of no big meals than a bunch of little snacks. You know.
Wow.
I'm here to feast, not no snacks.
Carlo wants some steak.
I'm staying here for the everyman. I do like how Austin basically, like what you were saying is like, maybe I should put up stand starts for the weak people. That's basically what you were saying. You're like, maybe I should just like put a grade on here for the people who can't do the sit like me. Because what if Fred Nicole, when he was doing Dreamtime, maybe he did start there and climb it to the top before the sit. And just that little option of he could just been like, hey, that was Dreamtime. And then he went and did Dreamtime sit. And so the reality may not have been any different, but it was just like a choice he made.
But he never, viewed that as a complete boulder. He viewed
Fred
that
knew
as
better.
just a. Yeah, Fred knew better.
Okay, look.
Intention is the important part, I think.
Don't upset Fred, Josh.
Yeah.
He's never coming on the pod now.
Fred, please come on the pod. I want to hear about the Dreamtime story.
Patron saint of lockoffs.
I agree. Why did you lock up Shosholoza? How did you do that?
Because he could.
Okay, look, I hear what you guys are saying, and I think that it's a very pure, beautiful way of paying homage to the person who put up the boulder. You're saying, look, this is the fucking boulder. This is where Fred started. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, but if we're going to call it Dreamtime, first ascended by Fred Nicole, this is what we're talking about. Otherwise, we're not having the same discussion, right? We're not talking about rock climbing. Totally get it. You have to still pay attention to what the world ends up doing. Like it's fun to do our own art, have our own viewpoint of things. But then if you say, hey, look, this is where the problem starts, and it's like in the dirt on like a weird foot chip, and there's a jug right here, like the world might come along and say like, great, nice vision. Your vision fucking sucks. This is where it starts now.
That's happened to me before.
So that's embarrassing. I love that you admit that. And I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. And I don't like the idea of the ego snack. Like the one I was thinking about is I really wanted to do Sky in Rocklands. That was that I really, really, really wanted to do Sky. I did not do Sky. And I pulled on from the first move or whatever, that obvious ledge about stand start height. Just want to point out, did it easily to the top. Went home later, like a year ago. I'm on like 8A, thinking about going back and trying to do Sky. I see Sky Stand is now logged on 8A. And I was like, oh, did I do Sky Stand? Cause cool. That's a nice little ego snack there. And so my only pushback there is just
Josh likes snacks.
Dude, maybe my stacks are big steaks. You don't know. Anyways, my pushback there is that the community should have a bit of a say in the world. And if, people are starting from a certain point and it's not just because they want to pat themselves on the back, there's some wiggle room there where like, if everyone thinks that your vision was dumb, and also it's tricky because like, I think about something like, sit starts in general, or like Buttermilker, which, there's a Buttermilker starts on a jug kind of over to the left. Buttermilker stand, just stay quiet. You guys don't freak out and shake your head. Buttermilker stand starts from an undercling and ear, and it's a stand start. And my point is that someone with different ideas about what makes a problem good might be like, why the fuck are you sitting in the dirt and traversing to start a problem? That's dumb. And so anyways, that's all. I said my piece.
That was going to be my closing note, Josh,
next?
was Buttermilker stand does not exist.
Yeah.
I knew it was in there.
Stand
I know.
does not exist.
So the other boulder problem that typifies this is Resident Evil in Joe's Valley. It's a popular boulder problem. It's Joe's season is starting. People are going to be going out there. Resident Evil starts from 2 crimps down low over where like the beginning of Black Lung is. That is the start of Resident Evil. If you don't start on those 2 crimps, you didn't climb that boulder problem. Get over it. Even when I first went there, like it was probably 2009, someone who like one of the OG dudes, was showing us around. And when he showed me the start to Resident Evil, he didn't show me those 2 crimps. He showed me the little split finger pocket and the other hold from that you grab with the left hand from Black Lung. And I did it from there, and I thought I had done it. And it wasn't until after that I realized it. I removed the tick and I had to go back, and it wasn't that big of a deal. But if people want to start there and have that be the thing, to your point, Josh, about like the community can make a change, that's fine in a way, but you can't call it the same thing, because now we're talking about 2 different things. Like if you want to call it Resident Evil High Start or Resident Evil from 2 moves in, or whatever the heck you want to call it, just don't say you did the thing you didn't do. We'll call it out again. Like there's no cheating. There's only lying. Like you just have to say what you did.
I do think that Resident Evil start is just like the way that it was originally done is kind of shittier than like the way that most people end up starting it. And that's objective. Like it's just not as nice of moves down there.
I really
it's
like
not as
that
nice
move.
to pull on. You do? Okay. Well, maybe
yeah, I really like that cross. I think it's kind of sick. But it's like, as long as you like, if that was Resident Evil and that's where it started and this is where we want to start, we just can't call it the same thing. Like that just seems obvious to me.
I agree.
You know why this stuff really happens is that Resident Evil, maybe I'm wrong in this, but I kind of thought of it as being like soft for V10. And it's often because people start. And so this just happened to me. I was out at Silver Wolf. Carlo, I don't know if you've been out there. It's like a V10. And I did it. And it has this cool, big, chalky rail. We didn't have service, didn't have beta videos. It was just like, where's it start, guys? Oh, it starts here. So we start it. I do it. I'm like, wow, that thing felt pretty soft for 10. And then I log on 8A, and I see some comments around like, started on like, the low seam like it's supposed to or something. And it was not an obvious start. And I wonder, I'm like, like maybe that's why it felt soft, because I didn't do the problem. And I think that's kind of like the woven into this that isn't talked about as much.
That's where the issues arise, is like, yeah, I think even from those 2 crimps, maybe Resident Evil still is soft. Who knows? I don't really care. But certainly if you're like, oh, Resident Evil is V10 and it starts down here, and then you start up here and you do it, is it not different? And I've seen people do it, and then someone will point out to them like, oh, it actually starts down there. And then they go try it and they can't do the move. And then they still around the campfire later are like, yeah, Resident Evil soft V10. Like, well, you didn't do it. Like, and you couldn't. You did the thing that you're calling soft V10, and then you tried to do the actual start move and you couldn't do it. And then you're like, nah, but that's still the 10. I don't know. It doesn't, the pieces don't fit. I don't understand.
That's where you got to confront people around the campfire.
You tell them.
Anyway.
Ooh, there was a good story there.
There's stories.
There's this guy, Will, out in the campground in Joe's Valley. He's just taking away sends right and left.
Actually, I'm going to just say, do not be that guy who calls people out either. I would say like, that is also super lame. You hear someone talk about, I just did my first like V4. It was so awesome. I'm so psyched. And Will's like, actually, you fucking suck. You stacked 2
not
pads.
doing that.
Don't
haven't
do
done that.
dude.
Not going to do
Don't
that.
do
Don't
that.
worry. I'm not.
Gosh, that happens.
I think there's a way to approach that maybe in like a nice manner. You know, I think there's a way to.
There are,
educate
and it's
and
not
inform
just confronting and calling them
How
soft.
about
I know.
send us your videos and we will
judge your videos.
provide honest opinions.
Just be like,
whether or
hey,
not.
you should upload that to the internet, and the internet will do its work.
There you go.
Because the internet is a savage place for that stuff.
Either that, or you're normalizing like the thing that we're maybe arguing against.
We should have a segment where they send in videos and we just watch them and judge them.
That's just gonna be people sending in like their buddies' videos of or my videos.
Yes. It should just be us tearing Josh's tick list.
We'll start with our own, and it'll start with.
God.
I mean, Josh has most of them, so when I say our own, it'll be.
We mean Josh. Yeah.
What else? What other ethics do we have?
No, we've gone long enough.
Is that it? Okay, good.
We have other ones, but they're for the next time.
Bring on the ethics questions.
All I can hear in my head, honestly, is just Will saying these questions don't have to be asked on better boulders. That's what it really comes down to. Is, like everyone knows where King Air starts because you have to jump to a big fucking jug, and there it is. Like, period.
There's no other way to get on.
Climb good boulders, you guys. And if you're going to do an FA, add a little stand start for plebes like me that can't do the V15 that you put up. Austin.
I will say I almost put up a sit start to King Air a couple years ago, but I ripped off one of the crimps. I think it's still doable, but... And then Keenan walked by me one day and was like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know what I'm doing down here.
Wait, are you saying devolution isn't cool? Because devolution
No.
cool.
I mean, that is cool just because the holds are sick on it. And it
and you start on the ground. You start on the ground for devolution.
That's true. The rock stack takes away from evolution.
Yeah, 100%.
For sure.
Carl, did I see Bel Soriso stand logged on 8A by someone?
Yeah.
Is there a stand?
Yeah, it was put up as a stand originally. I think it makes sense. It's like a good
by you or by
point in the
someone
boulder.
else?
No, I put it up. Yeah, I put up both. Yeah.
Thank you.
That was for the community. That was from my heart.
A stand for the culture.
One for the people.
So
a man of the people.
The low start was actually a little bit harder to do beforehand. We had to roll like a pretty big rock out of the way. That was like, it was kind of like if you fell on the lower bit, your spine would hit the spine of this rock, like exactly, even with pads. And so I ended up rolling this block, kind of like slightly shifting it out of the way essentially. And it made like the bottom work better. And so initially the lower start just didn't really seem feasible almost. Like a couple years of being like, I don't even know if this goes down here. And so did it from a stand because it was an obvious pull on point. It's a really good hold. It's a breaking point in the boulder. That was kind of my thought process on it. But yeah,
you should have just left it at just that you did
for the
it
community.
For the people.
Yeah, I almost took it away when I did the low. I was almost just like, sorry guys, we're going to negate this entirely.
Here's the one I really want to remove from the world is there's a climb called Nazgul up in Tahoe at the Saddle Boulders, and supposedly there's like a 9 if you start here, like a 10 if you start here, an 11 if you start here. And I'm just there can be a stand and there can be a sit, but even me and all of my trying to play devil's advocate is like, fuck this. Like, this is dumb. Like,
that one's crazy.
Like, I don't, like, which Nazgul are you talking about?
That's the slippery slope, right?
I'm not into it. Although I will say that you get more information about a boulder and how hard it is. Like we always have, there's like that Darth Grader thing. Like people are always trying to chunk things into smaller, more abstract bits and understand that. And, for this thing we do called rock climbing, that's different, but I understand that pull to try to just chunk things and understand them. I think that's interesting when people are like, that's a V5 section. I don't love that. I don't want people to then log like I did this 2 moves in the middle of this greater, on evolution. And that was a V6, but it is kind of interesting how people do that. So, all right, guys. The reason why I cut us off from the ethics segment is because we still have a couple of Patreon Q&A and we've been going for a long time. So, I just want to jump right into it. If you want to hear that Q&A and other extra behind the scenes content from this episode and others, head over to patreon.com/testpiece to sign up now. Patrons also get their episodes early and ad-free. There's hours and hours of bonus content there to help you on your own path of going from good to great. Still not sure? There's a free 7-day trial for you to check it out. And to help the show grow, please share this episode with someone who would love it. Okay, see you next week.